Well, hello and welcome to another Photo Stories. This week we're with Carmina Ripolles, and I'm going to be talking to her about one of the photographs she's taken. I was first told about Carmina by a friend who'd seen her work on Instagram, and I started following her probably about 3, 4 years ago now, and was immediately impressed by her ability to frame a picture and to compose a picture. She works, I suppose, in what might be called street photography or street portraiture, and she has a very uncanny ability to talk to people and get them to allow her to photograph them, sometimes in not always flattering situations. I know that she has more recently had work exhibited in a number of places, including the Ferrens Open in Hull, and she's also begun to appear in magazines, which is quite exciting, I think, for everybody involved, and great recognition. So, hi, Carmina, welcome.
Hello. Hi, Nigel. Hi.
Have I missed anything out about your photography that we should be telling people or not?
No, I don't think so. I think you gave me a very complimentary introduction there. So that's
Well, you
fine.
deserve the compliment, so that's great.
Thank you.
I suppose, but I should say we've actually managed to work together a couple of
Yeah,
years ago when we took a year out to photograph Beverley Racecourse
yeah,
with
yes,
five
yeah,
other people, and so that was very nice because I obviously got to know you much better then and
yeah,
saw
yeah.
you at work, as it were.
And it was a really
So
good project. Yeah,
yeah, so we've got a photograph on the screen here.
yeah.
Would you like to tell us a little bit about that photograph? And
Okay. Well, this was Declan, and it is one of my favourite photographs. It was part of a set of photographs that I took very soon after I started. So I started in lockdown with, got a secondhand camera, learned how to use it, and went out taking at the beginning, just going to document lockdown really. But I sort of realized that I kind of did like taking pictures of people. And this one, I remember it was one really dreary sort of, it was actually a sepia kind of tinged day, although I've obviously color graded it in that way a little bit as well. But it was a brown November day, the North Sea kind of was the color of weak tea. And there was nobody about. I'd gone out with my camera, but there really wasn't anybody. And I just got to the end of the promenade, and I met Declan and a group of his friends who actually didn't want to be in any of the photographs. And they'd cycled over from Hull that day and really had picked an awful day to do it. And Hull to Hornsey, where this was taken, where I live, it's quite a long way.
yeah,
And they were sort of, they were wet, bedraggled. And at the point I kind of came along, Declan was fighting off seagulls who were after his battered sausage that he'd just got. And what I like about the picture was that he was a real kind of scruffy sort of kid, but he was just so full of like energy and joy. And he wanted me to take pictures. He was happy for me to take pictures of him. And I just sort of caught him fending off these seagulls and, battling them and larking about really. And it is all they are part of a set, but I like this one because he's kind of mid laugh and he's got the seagulls behind and he's holding his sausage. And I kind of didn't know which one to choose really out of the set. But they were it was one of the first set of pictures that I really, really for me did make me realize that I definitely wanted to do street photography and people, because I loved engaging with him. And at the end, I remember when I was walking away, he said it was one of the best days of his life, which I looking back, and I did revisit this series just recently actually on my Instagram page, and when I looked at it again and I thought about him saying that, I did feel really that was very poignant, because it wasn't a great day, it was a horrible day really, and this seemed to be like the highlight of something for him, and I found that quite sad really. But I also love the fact that we've kind of had that connection briefly, and that I've been able to do that. And it just made a really I feel, a really interesting little set of pictures, and it was nice to look back at them just recently, even though it's only, I think I took it probably about 2021, 22, when I first started doing photography, really. So it's not that long ago, but it feels like quite a long time ago now, looking back at
Yeah.
it.
Well, I think you said a couple of interesting things there, and I suppose, firstly, that you haven't been taking photographs for a very long time, but you do have a very natural eye, I think. And I think the second thing that engaged me was that you found your oeuvre, if you like, what you wanted to do very, very
Yeah,
early on. If
yeah,
other people were
yes.
going to go and start doing street photography and street portraits in the way you do, are there any sort of technical issues or hints or, good things for people to remember that you would give them as a gift?
I think the main thing, is actually just take your camera with you everywhere, because in fact, recently I've probably stopped doing that quite as much. And I'm going back to doing it because, if you, like that day, I took my camera, there really wasn't anybody about, but then there suddenly was him, and you just never know what is going to be around the corner. Um, I took it out the other day on another dreary sort of day, and then that day I met a man in a cowboy hat who looked, quite cool, a dog that was walking on two legs, and a man with an eye patch. And you could never have predicted that when you set off with your camera, if you don't. But if you don't take your camera, you'd see those things and you'd be really annoyed with yourself that you'd left at
How
home. So
how
I
do
do
you
think that is my top tip: take your camera everywhere. And the next thing I would say is always just be prepared to, like, talk to people. Tell them what you're doing and see if they're interested in being part of that a little bit, and hopefully then you'll get a little bit of conversation. Listen to them, hear what they have to say about themselves, because I always say this, the point of probably becoming boring really, but everybody has got something to say
yeah,
and to tell you. And if you just give them a little bit of a moment in a spotlight, really, I think everybody deserves that. And as somebody who's got a camera and somebody who can, you're giving that to people, really. And if
yeah.
you pass the picture on to them as well, then it's a nice, it sort of things, it feels like something's come full circle, really. A bit of a connection, you're giving something back, they're giving to you. But you've got to take your camera with you
Well,
everywhere.
I've seen a lot of your pictures, and at the end of this broadcast, I will put your Instagram page up so people can have a look as well. But you clearly do engage with people in a way that many street artists don't appear to. Many street artists see themselves as taking candid pictures, I suppose, where people don't necessarily know they're being photographed.
Yeah,
Yours are very different in that way because you engage people very much, and the photographs show that because people are looking at you, they're smiling there, and you have got some great photographs of people that perhaps normally would not be photographed. So
yeah.
congratulations.
Thank you. Well, thank you.
Has
I'm glad to
has
be
this
happy.
particular picture? I know you've begun to be shown in exhibitions and begun to be published more widely. Still early days, I realise for you, but I just wondered if this particular picture had an afterlife that it's been shown anywhere.
Well, it hasn't really. I did apart from a magazine called The Bee, which is a magazine, a new magazine, really, and they showcase new writing, but particularly working class writers who ordinarily perhaps don't get the platform either, really. In the way that I've just got to let my dog out. My dog is scratching. Um, sorry about that. Yeah. So yes, the Beast showcases writers and artists, and they got in touch with me about showcasing my photographs, some of my photographs, and doing a little article about me, because I work within a sort of, I suppose, a working class community, northern East Coast seaside town. And the people I take are usually just ordinary people. But I suppose my pictures aren't showing them necessarily kind of bleak and miserable, you know, or I'm not taking pictures of homeless people very often, which is a kind of narrative that has, I think, a lot of photographers have taken.
Yeah.
And so I suppose they were interested in me because it was something I often did show people that seemed to be fairly happy and having agency and, you know, just not particularly being represented as downtrodden.
No.
So I think that's what attracted them. So that this little series of Declan pictures actually did go in that article along with some others, and it was a really nice. It was a lovely thing to work with them because, you know, very much agree with what they kind of represent and what they're trying to do. So that was good. And that's the only place this has been shown actually. But I did repost it on my Instagram page. So sort of several years later, where it then became quite a, you know, a piece, a set of pictures that people were interested in, because obviously now more people do, I suppose, do see my photos. So it was nice to have it looked at again, really. But yeah, it hasn't been one that's, you know, gone anywhere particularly, apart from that the bee, which was really nice. Yeah.
Carmina, thank you for joining us today. I hope very much that you meet Declan again one day and find out what's happened to him since. Because it's sort of one of those things where you think it'd be great to meet up and say, so what's happened in the last 3 or 4 years to you?
It would. Of all the people that I've taken, he's somebody I would really like to meet up with again and find out what happened to him. Yeah.
Well, thank you for joining us today and sharing that. If anyone watching this has enjoyed the broadcast and would like to see more, then just click the button below here to join the broadcast in future, and you'll get to know when another one is up on my site. In the meantime, I want to leave you and Carmina and say thank you very much for watching, and thank you very much for taking part, Carmina.
Thank you. Thank you.